500 years ago, he washed ashore the sole survivor of a shipwreck. And upon the skull of the man who killed his dad, he said, "I'm mad, I must eradicate piracy, injustice and cruelty, and all my sons will follow me, so evildoers will believe that this man cannot die."
G'day, this is X-Man, the Phantom Podcast. I am Jermayn, and I am with Stephen. Our website is chroniclechamber.com, and you can subscribe to your podcast via YouTube or through your favourite podcast apps. Press the thumbs up button, click the bell, you know the drill. Recently, Ash has released some updates on the Phantom video game, and the fan community seems very excited, so we thought it is best to catch up with him. And as I said before, I am with Stephen. How are you, mate?
I'm doing well there, Jermayn. And yourself?
Yeah, our footy team sucks, so that's why we're doing podcasts instead.
Yep.
We're in a race, you and me, for the Harley Reid Cup.
Is he the number one draft pick? Is he?
Yeah, he'll be the number one draft pick. Yeah. So anyway, we are not here to. This is not a football podcast. This is a Phantom podcast. So we were here with Ash. So g'day, Ash. How are you?
Gents, I'm doing well. Finally. I'm good.
Good to hear. Good to see you're upright.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this podcast was originally going to be released. We were going to record it probably about a month ago, maybe, because you had some exciting updates, and we were going to, talk about it while it was still fresh in everyone's mind and everything like that. So, look, we're now going to do that now. There's been holidays, there's been sicknesses, there's been life. We've all got kids, we've all got jobs and everything like that. So sometimes stuff gets in the way. But we've put all that aside today, and that is to talk about some exciting updates with the Phantom video game. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to go over some of these updates, some of the screenshots, and we're going to ask some questions that have been sent through to us personally, but also that we've seen on social media, and then we're going to throw in a few ourselves, see if we can get some little more tidbits, and then talk about some future updates that we are likely going to see, and I guess keep the excitement levels to a high octane 10. Now, Ash, for those who have come in late, pun intended, if you're a Phantom fan, you'll know what that is all about. Can you tell us a bit about your recent updates, and then we can kind of go from there? So tell us about what you've done with the website and the screenshots, please.
Yeah, so a couple of weeks ago, probably 3 weeks ago now, we released a press kit sort of update, which had some overview of the game, what kind of game it's going to be, a little bit of a taste of the box art for the standard release, and then 4 or so in-game shots, which are screenshots from the game to sort of show you the artwork style and the mechanics and the combat, and as much as we possibly can at this stage. So we've had very positive feedback. Everyone loves the art style. I think it's coming along nicely. And we've had plenty of people reach out, which has been great. So I guess, that's pretty much what we've done. We got to a point where we wanted to give people a proper taste of the game. Like, what's the game going to look like? What's it going to look like from a mechanic point of view? What does the combat look like? What does the UI look like? All that sort of stuff. There's obviously a lot more that we will be showing over the next few weeks, but this is sort of like the initial taste.
Yeah, and if you're on YouTube at the moment, we will be referencing and showing these screenshots quite a lot. So if you haven't seen them, if you've been living under a rock or you've come in late, please either go to our website or look at them on YouTube. So, Steve, you are from the Chronicle Chamber crew. You are the resident gamer. So we'll probably be leaning fairly heavily on you. When I see these screenshots, I see artwork, and action and stuff like that. But you're actually a gamer. You see a lot of things from a gaming perspective. So could you kind of take it from here, ask some questions about different aspects?
Just see that as a overall picture, and you got the fan of the bad guys, and you got the senior or whatever. But I like the how you've the health packs. I'm assuming they're health packs, and
Mhm.
you have to just walk over them and they'll go away. Oh, you know, you
So yeah, there's a specific button you press to crouch down and collect them. So
okay.
it's a little bit more involved than your standard. Just run over it and you collect it. But yes, that's the general vibe.
That's because I saw that there, and I saw it also in the skull cave. Are you allowed to talk much about the? Oh, he's about to throw that knife, isn't he?
Yes.
First time I've noticed that. Um, yeah, I've only been looking at these images for the last 3 weeks, and I've just noticed he's throwing the knife. I was going to say, are you allowed to say? Are you going to be talking much about the story today? Are you allowed to say?
I can, and I can't. I mean, well, of course, I can tell you absolutely everything right now. The only thing holding me back is me.
It's just rather interesting that
We
there's
should have
bad
got more
guys
of
in the
those
skull
rums.
cave.
We should have got more rums into you before we started this podcast.
So
well, let me just say the fact that Diana and Phantom are back in the skull cave is because this is the initiator of the storyline, and what the Phantom and Diana must do begins in the skull cave.
this is like scene one of the game.
Say that again, sorry?
Is this like scene one of the game?
Yeah, so
level
1 has 3 scenes, so 3 sub-levels, which will be the forest, the skull cave, and then no surprises because we've already shown the artwork, will be a horseback chase with the enemies throwing things at you. So they're the first 3 levels. So you've got 2 traditional style beat 'em up levels, then you've got more of a Sunset Riders meets Turtles in Time kind of hoverboard style level where you can control a hero, you can use hero to run left, right, up and down, and then you're controlling the Phantom as well to shoot. So in classical Phantom style, to defeat that boss, you are not shooting the boss, you are shooting the crates the boss is throwing out, and the shrapnel is being deflected back onto the boss and injuring him. So you have to get the timing right, you have to shoot the crate just as it leaves his hands in order to have the ricochet effect with the wooden shrapnel coming out of it to take down the enemy.
So if you're playing particularly this level 2-player, would Diana be shooting as well?
No. So 2-player 1, so this is one of the unique factors of the co-op. So whenever these levels appear, and there's a few of them scattered throughout the 15 levels, one person will be controlling Hero and Diana, one person will be controlling the Phantom. So you have to work in as a team to essentially bring down the boss. So
and if you're playing 1 player, is it just going to move automatically, like Hero just move automatically?
No, 1 player is going to be harder, like in all games, my friend. If you're going to play through a game as a single player, you're going to be presented with a few more challenges. So there's lots of different control options that will be available, but the most popular one we're thinking from a Switch perspective would be that you've got your left analog stick, I should say, that will be controlling Hero, and then you've got your right stick, which will be controlling the angle of the Phantom's gun, and then you've got your trigger underneath to shooting.
Yep.
So yeah, single player is going to be a little bit more tricky, but the good news is if you're bullet happy, you can shoot your way through the logs that are on the ground and things like that too. So you don't necessarily have to do a lot of maneuvering around with Hero if you don't want to. But having said that, the ammo is going to be set and limited. So you don't want to be kind of just blasting your way through. You have to be a bit strategic about how you use your ammunition.
Will there be ammunition pickups?
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
When I saw that log there, I thought that Hero would have to jump it. I didn't think about dodging it.
Well, we did have a jump planned, but control-wise, we just thought it was going to get tricky from a single-player perspective to be controlling both Hero, the Phantom, and also shooting and a jump. So we've kind of limited. And look, if you go back and play any of the classic 90s beat-em-ups where they had a vehicle mode or horseback mode like Sunset Riders, it's very restricted. They either restrict the horse and give you a lot more options with shooting, or they'll give you a lot more options with moving around, but limited with shooting. So we're trying to balance it out there. And look, that mechanic might slightly change as we play test it a lot more, but that's currently how it's sitting.
No worries. It just reminds me of level in Battletoads. I think they had a
Battletoads is another good reference. Yes,
yeah,
100%.
Whether they had some sort of hoverboard type thing. That was almost a hard level. That took me forever to get past that.
And look, Hero is such a big sprite, and we wanted to do the horse riding justice. We didn't want to have just Hero as a background character. We wanted to take full effect of what it would be like. And there's a little bit of like the movie element to it there too, where Hero is kind of shown in these like epic sequences. That's kind of what we wanted to do in the game too.
Very good.
But it's definitely homage to Sunset Riders in a certain sense, but also keeping the use of the Phantom's guns in a traditional kind of way, where he's not deliberately shooting people. He's using his guns in a more strategic way to, in essence, get the same effect, but it's a proxy kind of thing,
So there's going to be people who are good gamers or understand gaming elements like Steve, and then there's going to be people like me that are watching this and looking at these screenshots who are not gamers. So down the bottom here, you've got, I'm assuming that's a health bar for the Sing Pirate, which you talked about, how you have to kind of injure the Sing Pirate, which is the dude in the leaning out of the aeroplane. And then you've got Hero here. So I see you've got the little gun, which has got 46 here. So that means what? There's 46 shots left?
46 shots left, yeah.
And then what's where you've got 3? Is that lives for Hero? Or
yeah, so this is a little bit misleading because the lives component is part of our testing process at the moment. We have lives in there while we're testing the game because we don't want to have to restart the game every time we lose a life when we're testing. So we may have lives for Hero as like a whole. So the package, when we say Hero, we mean Hero, Phantom, and Diana. You're going to get a certain number of chances to take out the boss as a trio, essentially, right? We don't know if that's going to be 1 life only. We don't know if we're going to give people options for 2 or 3 lives at this particular point. The score will carry over from the players. So we're treating these levels as kind of like a breakout from the traditional beat 'em up. So the scores will probably disappear and you'll be left with your ammunition and your health gauge for Hero, Phantom, and Diana as a group. How many lives there will be in the final game, we're not quite sure, because it's got to go through a play testing phase where we think, okay, 1 life is a bit too brutal, 3 lives is too much. Let's just make it 2 lives or something like that. We're going to figure all of that out. But yeah, that's essentially what that is. It's the number of lives.
Yeah,
but getting that balance correct, isn't it?
Yeah.
Could you also, is it possible to have like the what is it, the easy, intermediate, and hard level?
That's definitely going to be in there. Yeah. So one of the screens which I didn't include in the original press release, which is actually finished, so I'll be sharing that over the next couple of weeks, is the different modes of the game. So we've got arcade, and story mode is the primary one. So we're wanting people to play the story mode. That will then unlock arcade mode, which will be the same. You'll be able to play through the game without having to deal with any of the stories. You can just jump from map to map item around the globe and play. And then it'll also unlock a mini game, which is part of one of the levels. So those things will only unlock if you finish story mode on normal. But certainly easy and hard will be part of story mode as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Any questions on this one, Steve? Or otherwise we'll go to the next screen and dissect that a little bit.
One. Yep.
Okay, so we'll go the skull cave.
So the skull cave, and this is what's got everyone, well, I'll say everyone, but a few people wondering why would the how do the poachers or the Sing Pirates know where the skull cave is? How do they get in there in the first place?
Well,
why are they there?
It's a good question, and I really don't want to tell you.
Yeah,
I know the answer. The answer is in a 20-page document that I have for the script and the story. But we wanted the stakes to be high. Let's put it this way: we wanted the Phantom and Diana to be undergoing a mission together, where the stakes are incredibly high. The lineage of the Phantom is in question. Let's just put it that way. Okay. And there is a reason for them to be trialed and challenged both physically and mentally across the game, so that depending on how you play, you're going to be delivered at one of 2 endings. So the stakes needed to be high, and where could you draw higher stakes than people invading the Phantom's inner sanctum? I don't think there is any other way that you could say, right, the Phantom is in dire trouble here, and he needs to get his house in order, so to speak. So that's why it's there. And look, it's also like cool as hell. His cave. So it's in disarray, as you can see. One of the lampposts has fallen in that scene. The fire has started inside the cave. And I've also shared on social media the Skull Cave tour video, which is like just a pan from left to right. So you can. And
you had a little comment there about looking fairly bare, if I remember correctly, in that.
Yeah, so there's no elements in that. There's no crates or objects or anything in that Skull Cave video. It's just the Skull Cave itself, without any elements in there apart from a few items of treasure. But it's been ransacked, right? So it's going to be bare for a reason. There's not going to be as much stuff as you would probably imagine there being in there. So that's the general vibe we're trying to get with this Skull Cave level, as it's not in A1 tip-top Better Homes and Gardens exclusive magazine edition. You know what I mean? Like it's by the time Phantom and Diana reach the Skull Cave, it's pretty bad, pretty grim.
It would be interesting to see how Better Homes and Gardens would spruce up a cave.
A few throw rugs, man.
Yeah. This definitely looks like a bachelor's pad. There's no throw rugs or pillows.
You got to hand it to Diana. She hasn't tried to change much. You know what I mean? She's gone in and she's thought, okay, I'm going to leave this the way it is. You know, traditional.
Like this for 400 years.
She's got the castle of the air to spruce up.
True.
So a couple of things that I've noticed is I see the chain on the skull throne. Now, was it you did you know about the importance of the chain to many fans, or was that an element that was introduced by one of the other guys? Or
Anthony and I had a discussion about it because we used it on the teaser. Of the whole project. So we'd already discussed it. We decided it would follow through nicely to have it in the.
Cool.
To have it in the in the game itself.
Story. Yeah. Now I see here you've got the. So I'm just starting up from. If you're looking at it on YouTube, you'll see it from top right. You've got the Phantom, so I'm assuming you've got the health, then you've got his weapons, and then you've got the poacher with a big X. Does that mean that you've now defeated that poacher? So it's kind of like, again, from my limited understanding, the old, what was that Mortal Kombat style where you're kind of fighting and then your health levels go down? Is that what that kind of is?
It's very much stock standard for your beat 'em up kind of thing to show the enemy that you're currently fighting in their health, and then when it drops to 0, there'll be a little cross that goes through it briefly, then that whole thing disappears. So
is that skull mark which we see, which looks like something out again, looks like a finishing move from Mortal Kombat or something like that? Is that, I'm assuming that means you've now skull marked that guy. Is that correct?
So your bottom, underneath your health bar, you've got a purple power bar, and that increases over the amount of combat you do. So the more fighting you do, it gradually goes up. When it reaches full, there'll be a button to press, very similar to Streets of Rage, where it performs. The Phantom goes into a multiple hit combo, which culminates in a massive uppercut that marks the opponent and knocks them out completely. So the VFX aren't final yet. That skull may change slightly. I personally feel like I'm dialing those back a little bit, but generally speaking, that's what happens. So you can use your power gauge when it's half full, and the Phantom will do something less intense and it won't mark the enemy. But when it's full and you see an enemy there, you can really lay into him with your full power bar and mark that enemy, which will give you an extra skull and a whole bunch of extra points. And also it'll keep you on a certain story path, because obviously there's going to be instances where you can just draw your guns and shoot the enemy, And let's just say those sorts of maneuvers will put you on a different morality path.
Okay. Now, and then underneath the bad guy who's getting skull marked, you've kind of got what, for lack of a better description, you've kind of got like a comic sequence. Is that something that happens every time you skull mark someone? You kind of get that.
Yep. So each enemy has their own little panel, and that's also going to be very, very slightly animated. So those panels will pop up for a few seconds and then fade away after the character's been skull marked. We also have a second animation sequence for when the actual enemy in the game has been skull marked, which I'm going to leave as a bit of a teaser. But it's there's more to it than that. Basically, let's just say the enemy doesn't just fall over. I'll just put it that way.
Oh, I'm looking forward to see how they get defeated now, or skull marked.
Yes, it's a little. It's just a little bit extra. Anyway.
Yeah. Oh, it's those little bit extras that separate a game to a game.
Yeah, well, that's what it's all about the finesse. The last 6 months of this project is just going to be us going through and finessing absolutely everything.
Cool. Stephen, you got any questions or things you want to point out on this one?
None at the moment. Well, the only thing I can see, and go on the same boat that you were on there a second ago there, Jim. We've got the fella who the phans battling, poacher there. But if I just moved that, I couldn't see anyone underneath Diana, even though it looks like she's engaged with that fella there.
So there are 5 Sing pirate poachers. I haven't given them their official names yet. And these will be enemies that the Phantom.
Steve, Dan, and Jermayn.
Well, we'll talk about how much we're going to customize this game a little bit later on. But yes, King Features have just said we can't use words like, because in some of our initial proposals we called them goons and thugs, and we can't use those words apparently.
Oh, right.
And just one other thing to note too. We had some discussions internally after Anthony drew the original pose for Diana about her breast size, and we sent it off to King Features as it is, and we literally got a 1-line feedback to say please reduce her breasts by 15%. So I'm sorry, fans, for the next bunch of screens. Diana's chest will be 15% reduced, just in case anyone was particularly stuck on that. But apart from that, everything else is going to be 100%.
15%. I wonder where they got that number from.
It seems pretty arbitrary to me. I mean, if I had to pick a scale down, I think it probably would have been roughly that. We also had some plans to scale up her fists a little bit and a couple of other things too. But it was just interesting how the feedback was delivered. It's just very matter of fact. So yeah, that's going to be applied. So that's going to be the only change, because we've had some other comments to say, the gameplay looks staged, etc., etc. Well, that's the only thing that's going to be changed from the next screens, from the next batch of releases that we do.
Well, look, if the biggest thing and that was one of the questions I was going to ask, if the biggest change you have to do is reducing Diana's breast size by 15%, I think that's probably a good thing.
100%. And like I said, it was already a discussion we had internally too, because it just seemed like it was just a little bit too much. But generally speaking, yeah, they've everyone from the fans to King Features to everyone has been super super happy with it. So we're pumped.
Awesome.
But, yeah.
All right, this is one that I've a little bit interested in. So we've gone to the next. We've gone to the next screen, which is the bridge fighting scene, which sees the Phantom. If you're on audio, I'll explain this a little bit. So the Phantom is with 2 guys. One's got a man bun, so that can't be you. Sorry, Steve. And then you got another guy who looks like he's definitely looks like the 1930s style British type of thug with the big meat chops and
I'd say British or Australian, maybe South African.
Yeah, and And then they're fighting the Phantom, and the Phantom is under attack and has just been stabbed or slashed or for using the effect, shinked. So, Steve, you got any questions or things you want to discuss about this one?
Well, you kept talking about Mortal Kombat before. I'm just waiting for him to do an uppercut and for the bad guy to go
off the bridge.
Knock him off the bridge.
Well, the few things about this. The waterfall's animated. That's just a static version of the waterfall that you can see. We've done this beautiful animation of the waterfall with some mist and stuff rising from the bottom. The birds are all animated as well, so it looks really, really cool.
Now, is water really? Because I know in a lot of like Disney movies, water can either look really good or it can just look fake. Is water one of those things that it's really hard to do?
Yeah, so the whole VFX process and how we're going to be treating things like fire and water and things like that, we went back and forth on a few different styles, and the style we chose is not necessarily traditional comic. It's closer probably to an anime style of water. But yes, it is hard. We just got multiple waterfall references, trace certain frames, get it to look good, some motion blurs and things like that, and it came out looking pretty good. Having said that, it's like 2 days worth of work just to get a waterfall animated. So you can argue how effective it is in terms of time management, but the enemies have a taunt, so we didn't just want the enemies to be like your classic, oh, they're just going to approach you and try and punch you. That they're going to break off at certain points and just kind of like you can see that the guy on the far right there, he's got his fist up, and that's his little taunt animation. He's like, you're going to get it, Phantom, kind of thing. So each of the enemies has a bit more personality.
Looks like he's giving him what do you call it? The stuff you type of pose.
Pretty much, yeah. So each enemy will have a taunt animation, which just gives them a little more personality.
Oh, well, that would have been in the other screen where the fella's like throwing his knife up and down.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice. Now, I've noticed, I think it was on the other one, did a couple of them have, oh no, it's the same guy that had the little medallion around his neck. I was just wondering if that medallion around the neck was significant. Now, did you have to like do reference for like tree foliage and what type of flora and fauna you expect to see in Africa?
Well, it changes throughout the level. So that screen you're seeing there is like maybe 1/5 of the entire length of the
sprite
of the whole background section. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of different trees and things in there. I kind of left the foliage up to Anthony because he's already drawn the Phantom against the Bengala forest a bunch of times, and when I was doing the wireframe references, because I personally do the wireframe references for each of the backgrounds, give those to Anthony, and then he and I work together to build them up. When I say wireframe, it's just a whole bunch of like cut up GIFs and JPEGs and whole things like sort of strung together like a madman's kind of like a detective trying to solve a mystery, along with just some straight colored shapes and things to denote like size proportions and things. And then I kind of left it up to him to do the first pass, and then we'll do a couple of passes together just to say, hey, this needs to be changed, or we need to put in more reference behind that. So yeah, we didn't go tree to tree, trying to match everything up, but I think we got it pretty close overall. We're going to be doing a review, a reveal of the forest, like we did with the Skull Cove over the next couple of weeks as well.
Awesome. Nice. All right, and then this is the last of the screenshots, and then we'll probably get into some specific questions and stuff. Stephen, you want to throw some questions?
I don't really have much more other than I don't know. Do the bad guys arrive in the Jeep, or is it that just a static thing there? Can it be used to drive
The
through?
Jeep can be punched. The Jeep can be destroyed.
Yep.
We've got multiple stages of the Jeep's destruction. The big guy that you see in the Skull Cave reference, he actually comes out from behind the Jeep after you've met with these three, because you think, oh, these three guys are pretty easy to get through. Then we get the big guy who comes out from behind the Jeep.
Yep. He was
So
just
he's
waiting for you.
revealed. We're doing a couple of small reveals with the enemies. What was I going to say? Yeah, so the Jeep can be punched and torn apart, basically, like you would in Street Fighter or Final Fight.
And the crates have pickups in them.
Yep.
As you destroy them. Yep.
So I can reveal in our last chat that we had, you asked me the question, are you able to pick up objects and use them throughout the game? And we initially thought no, because it was going to get too complicated with the Phantom already having his two guns. Because in a lot of the beat-em-ups, the weapons you're going to pick up is a knife or a gun. And with the Phantom already having the guns, we thought, well, it's kind of a bit of a moot thing. But we've since decided we're going to have objects that can be collected and used as weapons aside from his firearms. So we're going to be making them sort of relate to the level itself. So in the jungle scene, you're going to be able to pick up a tree branch and just completely wallop the bad guys with the broken tree branch. And then in the Skull Cave, it's going to be a torch that's on fire. So we've actually thrown in some of those elements as well, because we just felt like it was missing something in that respect.
So is that for like when you run out of bullets, you can?
Yeah, if you just want to
conserve your bullets.
Conserve your bullets if you want to take out people. So what's going to be mostly in the crates is going to be items you need to collect. There's going to be 20 items you need to collect that have been looted from the Skull Cave. And I've got those items. I'll be sharing those items in socials before the trailer's released, etc.
So when you're saying items that have been looted from the Skull Cave, are we talking about items from the minor and major treasure rooms?
Yes.
So it could be like Cleopatra's asp or Cleopatra's snake. Oh, mate, look at that, eh? That was a good guess. What are some other ones?
We've got a sword.
You've got what's the sword from King Arthur?
Excalibur.
Excalibur. So that was, and then there was also the Roland. Who's the Roland guy?
The Horn of Roland.
The Horn.
Oh, Homer's. We've got Homer's.
Lyre.
Yeah. So those key elements have to be collected throughout the game. They don't have to be. It's not compulsory, but they will be available.
The Phantom, and I guess for those who are watching this who don't know, the Phantom, these are all items that the Phantom has been given from other people to safeguard against exactly what this is, from being stolen and stuff like that. So, the Phantom's not a hoarder, or, he's not, on the black market buying this type of stuff. He's been given it and he's trying to save it from society. And I guess, so yeah, you got to get him back. So that's interesting.
And the other items will be the health pickups, which you can see there. And then in the actual Skull Cave, if you want to go back to the Skull Cave reference.
Find it now.
There we go. The far left, you'll see ammo cartridge.
I could see that there. I wondered what that was. Yeah.
Yep. So ammo cartridge and bullets, that's your ammo pickup there too. So it'll be ammo pickups, health pickups, or one of the 20 items that you need to collect that are being looted in the actual crates themselves. And then, like we said, there's going to be items scattered throughout the levels that the Phantom or Diana can pick up and use as blunt weapons, basically.
I was just thinking there with the Jeep. You just go back to the Jeep again, Jim.
Where was it?
It'll be there somewhere. I was just saying, if it can fall apart, if it just happens to have the door comes off, could you use that as a shield?
We're thinking about doing that, but we didn't want to make the Phantom any more invincible than he kind of is. But
fair enough.
My theory is that he's already a little bit overpowered for the type of game, so I'm trying to bulk up, if anything, the strength of the enemies. Because we started off with about 16 sprite sets. So a sprite set would be a thing like a run, a jump, a hit, a punch, various types of attacks. And we shared some of those black and white line art, hand-drawn frame sequences. But now we've ended up with the Phantom now has 36 sets of animations.
Oh,
So
that grew a bit.
we've basically tripled the amount of things the Phantom will do and his reactions to things and attacks and combinations and so it's grown basically, and we're trying not to get the feature creep get to a certain point where it's actually going to delay production. But the more we play it, the more we play these first 3 levels, it's all about getting the balance right and making sure that we're adding as much fun and depth as possible into the game. So that's kind of where we're at.
Well, that's good. I don't think anyone will go against you for that if you're making sure it's a fun and well balanced game.
Yeah, definitely. Now, you made mention that you had to change some elements on Diana. Has there been anything else that you've had to change, and obviously this is what you can share and what you can't share, but has there been anything else that you've had to change either by instructions from King Features or as you're gone, like for instance what you just talked about?
Oh, there's hundreds of changes we have to make every single day. The only change that's come from above is Diana's proportions. Internally, we're constantly making changes based on we'll all do a play test every day and we'll review it, and notes will go up on our project thread, and we'll dig through it. Myself and my lead developer Billy will spend 2-3 hours a day just play testing, discussing, formulating ways to fix things. Just timings of how high the Phantom would jump, how much he floats in the air, like all the gravity and like all that sort of stuff just gets constantly tweaked. So, but nothing major. We haven't really changed anything structurally since January in terms of like, we've massively stuffed something up, we need to go back to the drawing board on it. But yeah, the drive for making this game much better than we initially anticipated has all come from internally. Like we're not facing any like huge pressure from anyone else outside of our own internal team. We're obviously taking fan feedback in as much as we possibly can as well.
Everything that you've shown us here, I'm assuming is from the first level, like the Skull Cave and the jungle. And you've just said before about your playtesting those levels. Is there much work being done on the other levels?
There's almost 0 point in doing too much on the levels other than the initial visuals until these first 3 levels are locked in terms of how well the Phantom and Diana are performing, how well the combat is working. Because really, once we've got this right, and I mean like to the point where we're probably sick and tired of it, we will then be applying that to the rest of the levels. There is always going to be a certain aspect of rinse and repeat in these types of games. We're trying to avoid that as much as possible, but from a development perspective, if these 3 levels aren't locked down and working to a 99% accuracy to how we want it to work, the rest of the game is going to be a train wreck. So we're only for the end of July, we've got a 30 July deadline internally, which is when we'll start to be releasing a trailer and all that sort of stuff. The combat we want locked down by that point. We'll have all 4 enemies in, the AI will be completely sorted. We're going to have the vast bulk of the game is going to be sorted by that point. So I'm compartmentalizing the development process. So Anthony will be off drawing the wireframes, or taking my wireframes and drawing up the next levels. But aside from that, we're not going into too much depth at this stage. So basically, the first 3 levels are going to be locked down by July, and then from July through to early next year is going to be taking everything, and for each level there'll just be little tweaks here and there. So, for example, when the Phantom goes into an indoor scene, again, we're going to have different objects that the Phantom fights with. There's going to be different things happening. So it's the same, but it's different, if that makes sense.
So the
But
skin's
until we have
different
all of this, until we have all of this initial stuff locked down, I said to the team, I don't want to be progressing further in the game aside from basic visuals until we're happy.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so that's what.
So there's no like, well, let's say they're in Australia or India. There's no background work done or a layout, I guess.
There is.
There is.
Yeah. The wireframes have been done. It's now over to Anthony to do. We have about a 6-week window to do every level. There's 6 weeks per level, basically, once we hit the end of July. And so that's what we're kind of aiming to do, to finish a level every 6 weeks until we have to hand the game over into QA and go through all the rigmarole of getting the game ready for launch. So it's going to be tight. It's always tight when you try and make an entire game in a year and a half, especially when we don't have tens of millions of dollars. So, but that's just, we have to compartmentalize the game from a quality assurance perspective, because I don't want our developers to be developing levels 5 now and levels 1 to 3 are still looking patchy. So it's just about getting everything right as early on as we possibly can, and then I think everything will flow a lot nicer.
Yeah, get the base right, and everything will grow from there.
Yep. And all the enemies have been designed, so all the enemies have designed for the entire game, including all the bosses and everything. So they're all done. The wireframes for the levels visually are on their way to being completed. So it's but like I said, colors and textures and all that sort of stuff won't come in until beyond July.
Very good.
I say that and I'm kind of freaking out internally about it.
July's not that far away.
Mate, 5 months have just flown. I don't even know.
Yeah, and when you've been sick for half.
Yeah, I better say, and you've been crook as well.
Yeah.
No worries. So we've got some questions that have been sent through to us via our email, which is chroniclechamber@gmail.com, via our socials, which are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And then we've also seen some questions asked by other people, not directed to us, but some other questions which we've kind of included in here. So we're going to fire them off. Some of them you might be able to answer, some you might not be able to answer. Mm-hmm. You talked before, June 2024. Is that still the date of the aim of when the game is likely to be released?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so end of June it'll be, probably first week of July.
Okay.
Lots of factors.
School holidays.
Yeah, lots of factors involved in this release. Making sure it's all approved, play tested on it, and QA and all that sort of stuff, and we have all of the approvals from each of the regions that require certification for age. What do we call it?
The rating and
the ratings approvals and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, we have to start applying for that around about October, November this year to have it ready. So yeah, there's a lot of factors at play here. But
what sort of rating is it looking to get? Like if we take the Australian ratings there.
It'll be PG, there's no blood, it'll be low level animated violence, which I'm hoping will be what the actual certification will be. This is for like Australia, Europe. I'm not quite sure what it'll be in the US.
It'll probably be G.
It definitely won't be G. Yeah, I know.
US it will be.
I think the US is kind of tightening up on that a little bit. So I can't see it being G, but it could be.
I don't know if we won't go into
unless the fans want a blood unlock code.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's all right.
I was going to say unless the fans want a blood unlock code, which would basically mean
oh right,
it's PG until you enter a code and then it becomes M.
It becomes M because of the blood. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned code, so that was a question that I had further down, but we might as well use that as the next question. Are you going to have codes like for instance, I've started collecting AFL football cards with my kids. Well, it's probably me that doing it, but it's for the kids. They have little print codes on the little AFL cards. I know Fortnite with their comic, they had specific codes. Is that something that may happen or
Yeah, so
something
look,
you might look into?
we originally set aside the different versions of the Phantom's costume in terms of colors and whatnot, just because of the sheer number of frames we're animating by hand. To go and recolor them would be an expense that I would be preferring to put into other aspects of the game. But over the last 8 weeks or so, we've written some code and got some AI involved in recoloring the Phantom suits that we think we can get done at a relatively inexpensive budget. So I think what we will most likely be doing is having codes for the Phantom's suits. So each region of the Phantom will be an unlockable code. That'll completely change his attire. And we're looking at other codes that will potentially be, things like unlimited ammo, unlimited health, things like that. If people want to,
So
breeze
cheat
through the
codes.
game, cheat codes and things like that. Yeah.
What
But
was
the main ones, the main ones will be the Phantom suits, I think, at this stage.
one of the games? Was it Wolfenstein 3D? Was it LIM or something?
Oh, now you're going back.
Yeah. No, I'm showing my age here. That literally, I've played limited games, and I'm kind of showing which games they are. Yeah, so I remember that one, LIM, and you used to do it on, what was it, level 9 or something? Do it at the start before you go into the bad guy.
Yeah, I think what we'll probably do is these will be just be an actual area where you can go in and enter a code and it'll unlock an item. The other option we might be having is just items will be automatically unlocked when you complete certain aspects of the game in a certain way. So complete the whole game on normal and you get a different suit, complete the whole game on hard and you get another suit. But I kind of like the idea of fans being able to unlock the codes. We might look at entering those codes into some of the comics. So I'll be talking to Fru potentially about doing that. So there's a few options there at play, basically. But yes, our goal is to have something in there for sure.
I remember Conker's Bad Fur Day, and you go and meet the little devil sprite, and you put the little code in there, and he'd either say yes, here it is, or no. And I'm just thinking, how would that work? And not to give you any ideas, but I was just thinking, oh, you got the Banda, you got they're pretty good with their medicines. Well, he's good with his medicines, and you go see Garan and give him this code, and oh yes, that's the right code, and here's your.
Yeah, I think a Skull Cave background kind of separate section where Garan is there and he says, what code have you got for me? And then you enter the code and he hands you a new suit or whatever the case may be. I think it's a cool idea for sure. Yeah, how we initiated is still on our list of things to go over. But yeah, it's on the cards.
Awesome. What about Billy Zane? Have you had any luck reaching out to Billy Zane?
I haven't reached out to him yet. My plan was to get the press release, get the game up to a certain level of completion, and then approach him with a pack to say, this is what the game looks like. This is the box art. This is super official. And I think I'm going to be doing that around about July, start of August, when we'll have the opening animatic finished. We'll have the first cut of the teaser trailer finished. We'll have more in-game screens to show. So then I can send it off to his team and say, hey, look, we're serious about this. We're not just a couple of chumps, and see what he says. He was actually appearing at a convention close to where Anthony lives. And so our goal, this was going back a couple of weeks, so our goal was to get him a pack at that stage. But unfortunately, Anthony had other commitments that he needed to, other commitments. So we had to pause that. But if anyone knows if he's going to be appearing anywhere, I can do a guerrilla stunt and basically go and meet him and put him on the spot, basically.
If you need someone to carry your bags, I'm sure there's 3 of us of the core team that would be more than happy to help you as well.
I haven't actually heard him talk. I probably need to dial up a few YouTube videos and listen to him talk to see if he'd even have a voice that's comparable to what we need now. You know what I mean? Like it would probably be he's probably got the skills to do like a Kevin Conroy and be able to do a younger, older version of Batman just off the top of his hat. You know what I mean? So yeah, there's a few things at play, but yes, I want to reach out to him. I want to make sure we have all of our ducks in a row before I go throwing things at him, and just give him the impression at least that we know what we're doing, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's more than just an impression. I think you guys obviously know what you're doing.
Well, it's that balance, right? You want to look like you're professional, but you don't want to look like you're made of money. So, because his managers will just go, oh, well, you know, he's not going to step out of the house for $50,000. And I'm like, well, you know, that's like a good chunk of our budget gone. I'm sorry, but, you know, look, if it comes to a price and he's agreeing it for a certain price and I don't want to pay it out of the budget, this would be something I would take to you guys and say, hey, can we do a crowd funding to get him involved? Which we can talk about later on anyway.
No, well, I guess we'll talk probably August or so around that. So that might be around the time. And of course, you said just then that that's when the trailer is likely to come out as well, July, August. So that might be the time we do another podcast.
100%.
Now, this is something that I'm not fully aware of or completely understand, but one of the questions that we've seen is plans for downloadable content or the DLCs.
DLC is going to be completely contingent on how many copies we sell. So if we have budget left over once we've sold copies, like let me just put this as clearly as possible. If we make back the money that we've put into the game via sales, there will be a DLC. If we come short, there won't be any additional content that will be released. So it's completely contingent on sales. We need to recoup our budget, and then we'll look at using some of that budget that we got back on a DLC. But there are options that I'll be talking to King Features about, and I can release probably this to the fan base that the King Features have given us permission to at least indicate the Defenders of the Earth characters exist within this game.
Oh, wow.
So if anything, I would be wanting to invest money into a sequel of this game, which will be using the Defenders of the Earth characters, rather than doing a DLC for this game.
Yeah,
like this is all just this is all just top level, but that's the way I would rather do it, because the game is a very well enclosed story. Like, if I was to do a DLC, it might be an extra playable character or something like that, but then it doesn't really add enough to the game. I would rather put that money into beginning the production of a Defenders project, basically. So it's not off the cards, but I'd rather reroute the money into something bigger for the next sort of game.
Yeah. Awesome.
I reckon that's good thinking.
Great.
Yeah.
Now, there was something that I saw about, I'm not quite sure about this, about alternative slipcovers.
Yeah.
Could you explain, like, is it like a sketch cover type of thing where, like, what's that?
So the slipcover is just basically when you open up the game box, you just pull out the piece of paper that's printed behind the plastic slip.
Yep.
We have to get that approved. It has to have the ratings stuck onto it and a whole bunch of different things. So, and then it has to go and get printed by limited run. So I'm not doing alternate slip covers because it increases our costs through limited run before we start making back money on the game. But I've said to people, the templates are widely available. If you wanted to do your own box cover with your favorite Phantom artist, I can't say no to that. I'm not going to try and stop it. So I would even be willing to share the template if they wanted to do their own cover. But we're doing one box art cover and that's it. Yeah. I'm not printing anymore. There will be, I've been speaking to other Phantom artists to do the cover for the collector's edition. So that will be different to the regular edition. But the box art that we've chosen and we're going to be refining over the next 6 months or so is carefully designed and curated to meet fans of the Phantom, but also in a similar fashion to the NECA Toys did in grabbing people who aren't necessarily Phantom fans just because it looks cool. Yep. So yeah, as much as I would love to do 10 different versions of it, it's just not financially viable. And the other thing is box sales of games, like hard copy sales of games, have dropped so much. You know, we're down to about 20% of games being sold at the moment are hard copy. So publishers are and especially with the economy the way it is at the moment with inflation and everything, publishers are very wary about doing anything outside of scope. So I'd have to really say the limited run, we're going to sell an extra 10,000 copies of this if we do an alternate cover for them to even care about it. So yeah, it's definitely off the cards for the standard edition. The collector's edition will have a separate artist and a separate design. But yeah, and I'm happy to put up the template for fans to do their own slip covers if they want to. Because I understand like fans have got their own artists that they really, really love, and they'd love to have as much of that in their collection as possible. Totally cool with that. But yeah, from our perspective, It's not going to happen.
So you've made mention of the collector's edition. So that's a collectible element, I guess, for the non-gamers. Now, obviously, you might not be able to share this, but do you have any idea of what is going to be in this collector's edition?
Okay, so the basics are going to be a box design that is different from a slipcover that will have a more hand-drawn, less digital look to the actual art. So I've been talking to a few different artists, well-known Phantom artists, about doing the cover, and Anthony's going to be doing the first concept sketches because he and I are just working on this together, and that's the way we want to do it. And then we'll be handing it over to a new artist to do their take on it. We want to have a sculpted pose from the game with the Phantom and Diana. And at this stage, I think it's going to be the Phantom and Diana on a motorbike, a 1930s British motorbike that they're going to be cruising around in India. And I'm just giving away that there's going to be another location in India. So that's going to be in there. I hope that'll be a resin painted figure on a base with a base.
Oh wow.
Then we're going to have a signed print from Anthony from the game. And then we'll probably have a couple of token smaller objects in there. And potentially, depending on cost and shipping weight and everything like that, which I've got to factor in, a copy of the soundtrack.
Oh, wow.
That's what your appetite, isn't it, Jim?
And it's getting quite expensive because there's the collector's edition, then you got to buy an Xbox version, a Switch version, a PlayStation version. I'm sure, guys.
I'm sure if you said to me, I want to buy a copy on every platform as well as the collector's edition, and you come straight to me, I will be able to do something for you guys for sure.
You do realize you just said that on a podcast.
I know.
There's a couple of hundred people, so
I know.
But there's a editing factor before this goes live there.
So the collector's is
sorry, mate, you go.
The collector's thing. You've just rattled off half a dozen things there and each one of those is going to be collectible to someone. So it's not like it's just a alternative cover and you're whacking an extra $50 or whatever. It's like a resin figurine statue type of thing that you can then glue, put together, paint.
It's only all preset, so you don't have to do any modeling yourself, any painting, anything yourself.
Yeah, well, so then that's even better. So you can just go, on the shelf. That's like, wow. I already know there's going to be probably a few dozen fans that are going, well, I'm buying two of those, one to keep mint sealed in the box and then one to put the figurine in the display cabinet and stuff like that. So
yeah.
That's a pretty awesome collectible element for...
Well, with the figure, I wanted something because there's been, just in the last probably year and a half, there's been so many variations. You've got all this stuff coming out of NECA, then you've got all this stuff coming out of...
Boss fights.
Yeah. So just to do a Phantom in a cool pose wasn't enough for us. And the whole essence of the game is the Phantom and Diana are out and about on their mission together. So that's the sort of emphasis we wanted to have. We wanted the resin figure to be completely linked to the game. The look of the Phantom will match the game, the look of Diana, etc., and a cool pose as well. So that's my main priority, is to get that and the limited edition print from Anthony in there, and then everything else I think will be a bonus basically from that point. The soundtrack will be interesting because it kind of, we're writing a different version of, we've got a general theme for the game, but then each level will have its own track. So there will be quite a lot of music in there, and I think that'll be kind of cool for people to listen to. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff to go in there, and I still have to get all of this approved with King Features and with Limited Run. And I've got to have all that ready by December because they need 6 months in advance for preparing this whole thing. So yeah, there's quite a lot going on. But what we want to do with the collector's edition is we will need to crowdfund and set up a crowdfund for this in August, September, because we will have to pre-prepare all of the elements ourselves for this particular collector's edition. And the collector's edition is not part of our original budget, but it's something we really want to do for the fans. And we're going to be offering a whole bunch of extra things for the fans to be included in the game and all that sort of stuff. So I don't know if you wanted to talk about that later on, and I can answer some other questions now if you want to talk about that.
Well, we've got you. So you're talking about, like, say for instance, a crowdfund. So if you support the various levels, so you can either just give a donation, or one of them, the levels I'm assuming would be that you would get an actual collector's the collector's box, and then there might be other levels of I don't know, I'm just throwing things out there, a piece of original art or
we've got some pretty cool we've got some pretty cool tiers that we're going to be offering for the game. So there's going to be a tier to have your name in the credits of the game just as a donation or as a contributor. And then there will be a tier to actually have your character, your likeness, placed into the game as a background character. So there's going to be a few levels where there's going to be a lot of background characters. So when I say a lot, I mean a couple of dozen or so. So we're going to be opening up tiers for that as well, and that will include you sending us your portrait, just like a front and side version of your face. Anthony will be drawing that into the game, essentially, like creating a 2D illustration of that. Then it'll go to our animation team. They'll do a couple of frames of animation. Then it'll go into the game. And then you will get back your personal, original Anthony's drawn version of your character signed by him. So we're going to be having that as a tier in there as well. And then, like you said, just if you want to essentially pre-order your collector's edition, there's going to be game t-shirts, game posters, a whole bunch of different stuff in there that people can, lower tier contributors might just want to throw in a few bucks. They can get a poster and the name on the credits. So yeah, we're hoping to kind of raise at least 50,000 Australian, hopefully 80,000 Australian to fully fund the collector's edition.
Yeah.
Which I think is pretty reasonable considering some of the tiers we're offering. And then use that to prepare everything, send it on to Limited Run, and Limited Run will then do the box, like all the printing and everything like that. But we'll be doing all of the soundtrack stuff and all the model, the resin stuff. We'll be doing all that ourselves because the price to get it done in the US by Limited Run, nothing against Limited Run or anything, is extremely high. Just because of the currency conversion issues we've got at the moment with the dollar being so weak against the US. It just means if we can handle most of that ourselves and produce it ourselves and then just send them everything they need to do the box sets, it's going to be a considerable amount of money that we would be saving, essentially.
So, Steve, just as well, you and I have lost a bit of weight. We'll get those model sheets through.
Model what sheets?
the model sheets, our profiles for.
Oh, you can just say to him, you guys can just say to Anthony, take 20 kilograms off. I'm sure you'll oblige.
We've already done that. We've done it the hard way.
And then
I've got to start that process. The
52 kilos.
Oh wow!
Wow. The translation from photograph to comic is usually the inverse of your likeness on TV. It takes away 10 kilos at a bare minimum.
That's always good. I might be athletic and back when I was 20 years ago. Anyway, getting back onto, I've got one more question from fans. This one was actually from Joe, who actually started Chronicle Chamber 15 odd years ago. Now, how do you plan to deal with the characters' relative obscurity outside selective countries like Australia, India, and Scandinavia? Some parts of Europe and USA not exactly huge fans. Do you have things in store to be able to get sales from non-fans?
Well, yes and no. I mean, at the end of the day, we're a small production company with a limited budget. So ideally, I'd like to be out and about with a media team, hitting up every single event and raising awareness for the Phantom. The NECA toys did extremely well in the US. And I think that's down to the fact that the package design was great. The articulation of the figure was great. And just the Phantom looks. I mean, I can't tell you how many YouTube reviews I've seen where the reviewer has gone, well, I don't know who the Phantom is. I just know a little bit about him based on the Billy Zane movie or something I saw in the 90s. But the figure looks awesome. And we need to capture some of that market. And I think that's going to come down to the design of the box art, which I think is on par. The fact that Limited Run have a very good distribution amongst Walgreens or Walmart, what's the game? A GameStop, Target, and a few other places. So we can definitely get it into those retail outlets really easily. That's just
which is what NECA did as well.
Yeah.
Yep. NECA did that really well. Like it wasn't like Boss Fights have just released their figures in toy store, in specified toy stores where NECA had them in, you could be doing your grocery shopping and, and get your figurine at the same time.
Well, when I was in the States just before Christmas, I walked into a Target in Southern California and the NECA toy range was insane, like awesome stuff you wouldn't see here in Australia. So we do have a good distribution in the US. I will be at Comic-Con in October in New York City, flogging the hell out of the game. And I've my plan will be to go to Sweden as well for their Comic-Con.
Oh wow!
So the answer is I can't do a great amount, but we have to do something. And I think Limited Run with their US distribution will get us into the stores. But in general, boxed sales of games has dropped so far to the point where most retailers now are really only stocking a couple of, half a dozen of each game, and that's about it. And when I say each game, I mean not even every game now. I was just watching a couple of YouTube reviews where they walked into their local game, except for GameStop, obviously. But if you walk into a Walgreens or a Target in the US now, most of the box copies are really only the AAA titles. Most of the indie or smaller stuff is just they're not even stocking because it's not worth their time. So we've had huge traction on sites that are more based on the type of game we're creating. So like the fact that it's a beat 'em up, we've posted the game to a few of the beat 'em up fan groups and got 40 something thousand views and tons of likes, and everyone's saying, where can I buy it? Where can I buy it? They don't care it's Phantom. Most of them don't know the Phantom because most of them are in the US. So I think the game will stand up on its merits visually and hopefully mechanically when we launch it, that people will just want to buy it purely because it's a good beat 'em up. And then you're going to have the fan base that are going to be buying it because they love the Phantom. Hopefully they're happy with it as well. And then I'm hoping word of mouth will spread it around along with us. We're going to be spruiking it well after it's released. And King Features are taking it to a couple of different trade shows and things like that too. So, everyone's chipping in, but it's not going to be like we don't have we don't have like a silver bullet. We don't have the equivalency in our game budget to then spend on marketing. It really is a grassroots kind of deal. We have to get people interested in the game from the beginning. We want to get them talking about it. We want to share the game with a bunch of different groups of people who might not necessarily know the Phantom but love the style of gaming. And that seems to be working. The feedback we've got so far is incredible. Like, so many people said, "Oh, I remember the Phantom," or "The Phantom wasn't big here, but that looks awesome." So, like, it's weird because I'm such a cynic when it comes to online commenting and things like that. I just expect the worst. To see the majority of feedback so far being positive has been very encouraging. I'm hoping that translates to sales in the US, given the popularity of the Phantom isn't that big there.
That's awesome.
All I have in terms of data is the NECA toys, and they sold incredibly well. Like I was speaking to you guys beforehand on the numbers. I don't think it's wise to share the numbers publicly, but they sold exceptionally well. And we know for a fact that Flash Gordon is a big character too, so that would have driven part of the sales. But definitely, there's people who just like the look of the Phantom, and they think, they think it's just a cool character. I'm hoping the way we've treated the Phantom, the box art design, the traditional way we've kept the Phantom looking. We haven't tried to modernize him. There's no 2040 style approach to it. It's like, if you've read the comics, I'm hoping that if people play the game, they go and buy the comics, it doesn't feel like there's a huge leap for them.
Yeah.
I think that'll help the brand too,
It's a smooth transition from one to the other.
I'm hoping so, yeah. Without bending the knee and being we have to do everything like the comics. I just think it'll be a smoother transition than, say, going from, I don't know, reading a Spider-Man comic to playing the PlayStation 5 version of Spider-Man. It is a leap. Yeah, I'm hoping that makes sense.
Yeah, no, definitely.
It's only 11 p.m. on a Saturday night. So.
Awesome. So you made mention of conventions that you're looking at going to the New York Comic Con. You're looking at going to Sweden. One country that you have not made mention is an Australian Supernova or Comic Con. Is that on the cards as well?
Yeah. So Supernova have reached out already, and I'm in communication with them now to organise a panel. But I'll also be trying to get a trade stand for the Melbourne one and the Sydney one as well.
For 2024?
For 2024, yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Would you do? Is PAX also video games, or is that just mainly tabletop?
No, PAX is video games as well. So I've basically got to work out a strategy for 2024 pre-launch, which will try and get us into as many different venues as possible, both Australia and the US, essentially.
Yeah.
I'd love to get back to Sweden as well. So whatever those guys can arrange with me, I would be a million times happy just to get over there and start promoting the game. I've also had interesting discussions with a couple of game bloggers in South America.
Okay,
and those guys are interested in basically whatever I can send them, whenever I can send stuff to them. So there's going to be people on the ground over there sort of, pitching the game, helping people get in front of the game. Something we haven't actually discussed is the web, so not the web, the iOS and Android port of the game. So within India and Brazil, so South America, console ownership is quite low. It's sort of around about 25 to 30% of all gamers over in those regions own consoles. So we will be doing a port to iOS and Android towards the end of next year, which will be a $5, maybe a $6 purchase. And it'll get you roughly 80% of the game. We'll have to cut some things out for because they're a lower spec device. But yeah, so we're trying to get that onto mobile as quickly as possible, so people in those regions who play a lot of mobile games can actually still play the Phantom as well without having to spend $30 or $40.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. So so we've talked a little bit about some dates throughout kind of like this pod for the last hour and a half. I just wanted to quickly kind of go over them so people that are listening to it or have forgotten or whatever. So we're kind of to be released next, whether it's on your website, the Chronicle Chamber platform. We're looking at things like the trailer, which is going to be around July.
End of July, yep.
End of July. Then we're looking at maybe a crowd fund, August, September. Is there anything else that is likely, and will you then drop more screenshots?
It's going to be heaps of screenshots coming between now and then. We've got a whole bunch to send out next week, which we're happy to share with you guys first, which will be the Phantom using his guns in the levels and what you can do. I've also got a enemy lineup, so basically like a police lineup, but with all the enemies. So
nice.
That's going to be cool. We'll be sharing that with you guys as well. And then a whole bunch of additional stuff that we're doing. We haven't really shared much of Diana's moves in that game and what she does.
That was going to be my next question. We've seen a little bit of the Phantom, but we haven't seen much of Diana apart from just standing there.
Yeah, so we're gonna share Diana's moves, but that's a whole thing. Like our team have been working around the clock to get her feeling like the kind of anatomically sort of structured person that she is, if that makes sense. I think I'm just dancing around the point that there is a girl and there is a boy and trying to balance them out in terms of how they would attack. Because the Phantom's very determined. He's well trained. Diana has training, but she's not a day-to-day fighter of she's not like built the same way as the Phantom. So
she's not Wonder Woman.
Exactly. We wanted to feel light. We wanted to feel bouncy, but also kind of like her legs are a bit more powerful than her fists. So there's going to be a lot more leg kicking, and when she does punch, she's going to be putting a lot more effort into and a lot more weight behind her punches. So all of that's been considered as well, because like none of these characters have been animated before in the way we would, be able to use any references or anything like that. So yeah, some information on Diana will be coming out. We'll be releasing, like I said, the Bangala Forest background screen like we did with the Skull Cave. I'll be releasing what our plans are for let's call it the maquette, the collector's edition statue. And a whole bunch of stuff will be coming out between now and the end of June, and then the trailer, and then we'll just be out and about from the release of the trailer all the way through to the end of the year, promoting it as much as we possibly can. Conventions, comic book stores, corners. I'll be on the corner of Collins and King Street with a cardboard sign if I have to. Whatever it takes, basically.
Yeah.
At Supernova in Melbourne a few weeks ago, ran to Matt, and he had a couple of the promo, post like an A4 poster of it. I picked up a few, went to my comic shop. It's now on the front door of the comic shop.
Nice.
Yep.
Is that the comic shop on Queen Street?
No, this is in Ballarat.
You're in Ballarat. You're in Ballarat. Yeah.
Yeah.
What comic store is in Ballarat now?
Heroes HQ.
Right. Wow, Ballarat certainly has improved since my days. I worked in the only comic book store that Ballarat had in the 90s. It was called Mark One. And I begged and begged and I hung around and I begged and borrowed and I said, look, just give me a job 2 days a week. I don't care. I'll work for $5 an hour. They're like, okay. So I did 2 nights after school at the comic book store, and then it lasted maybe 2 or 3 years. It just ended up closing up. So I was king of the comics at school for a certain amount of time, and then my mum got me a job as a fishmonger. So that was
all right.
I'd rather
then
it's a pretty heavy fall from grace, basically.
Yeah, you would have just smelt.
The pay went up, but my status amongst the comic book nerds went well, and everyone really. Let's face it, wasn't that?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's good. It's good to know Ballarat's got its own little comic thing kicking on.
Yeah, no, it's still going on.
So I just wanted to, we were talking about the screenshots being shared and the stuff like that. So if you're listening to Chronicle Chamber and you are interested in seeing that stuff, not all of that stuff will be shared with us beforehand, but Patreons will get a sneak peek of some of that stuff before anyone else. So now's a good chance and time to join as a Patreon. One of the things I would love to be able to organise is get an open mic podcast with you, Matt and Anthony. Basically, the three of yous are on as guests, where the fans, which is everyone that's listening to us, gets to join in the podcast and actually ask you questions. And is that something you reckon we can maybe organise?
Yeah, by all means. I have no doubt that Matt and I will be fine in terms of time zones. It's just a matter of making sure we get Mr. Anthony at a time that he's not going to be asleep, and I think we should be good to go.
Yeah. No.
Keep in mind, he works so late into the evenings that it kind of works with the Australian day anyway. So I really haven't had to change my hours with that man.
Yeah. No, that would be good. So that will be something that we will organise. So if you like the sound of that, make sure you keep an eye on our website, subscribe to us, follow us on social media, and we will give everyone a good pre-notice for that. There'll probably be a little bit of a registration just so we can kind of keep track of numbers and stuff like that. Look, Ash, you've been immense and very open with your answers, the stuff that we've asked you. We've put you on the spot on a few things and stuff like that.
It's my pleasure, gents.
I really appreciate it.
always.
I'm out of questions. Steve, you got anything that I have missed?
Nah, nothing. I think, like you said, very immense. Like, of course he is. He lives and breathes it at the moment.
Mhm.
And
I close my eyes and I see purple.
Well, I was just about to say, I was just going to make a reference to that. We're messaging. Oh, was it yesterday or this morning? I finally got to actually play my my Xbox for the first time in ages. I was actually playing against my eldest son, and he beat me in Rocket League, which I expected. And then he goes and rushes me in Halo, which I didn't expect at all. Which means I need a bit more practice.
Yeah,
And yeah. So talking with Ash, getting this thing sorted, and all he's seeing is purple nowadays. So it's no wonder that he's able to answer these questions so succinctly and so thoroughly.
To give you an idea of like the insanity of my desk, I have two switches right here on my desk in front of me, and then I have a custom made Nintendo 64 that you flip up, and that's like 1/3 of the amount of stuff I've got on my desk, and yet. My actual gaming hours per week is very, very limited because we're just basically investing so much time into the Phantom that Zelda I have no time for yet. I bought Metroid Prime Remastered and Shredder's Revenge, and I've barely had any time to sink my teeth too deep into those. So yeah, I totally get it, man. My son's only 3. I think by the time he's 5, he's already going to be beating me at stuff.
Well, my gaming lately has just been the Wordle and Tetris. I found Tetris on the mobile. I've been playing that.
Yeah,
After watching the movie, it got me back into Tetris.
Oh, you watched the movie? That was a great movie.
Oh, I thought that was a fun movie. I really enjoyed that.
It didn't really try to be anything more than it had to be. You know what I mean? It was just right.
It was just right.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Ash, again. I hope your fans enjoyed that. We would love to hear your thoughts, feedback, and opinions on our social media platforms or over at the YouTube channel. Our website is chroniclechamber.com. You can contact us at our email, which is chroniclechamber@gmail.com. Don't forget, you can subscribe to us via YouTube or through your favourite podcast apps, including iTunes or Spotify. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Ash. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks,
For
guys.
myself, happy phantoming.
Happy phantoming.
you got to say happy phantoming.
Oh, so yeah. I didn't know if I was allowed to. Happy phantoming.
We have to see if we can get that in the game somehow. Maybe happy
I didn't know if it
phantoming.
was an internal policy, you know. Like,
No, guests have to say it.
okay, awesome. Happy phantoming.
Phantom's always there, but you won't find the phantom.